And thank you, Blake. And it is good to be back with you. It's great to come in, having been here now for several years, and to see so many familiar faces. I don't know how to explain this, and I didn't mean to get into this late this morning, but you know, when I come in this room and I see so many of you that I have been in your communities, I've been in your counties, I've been in your meetings, I've been on your farm with you. I saw Charles in here a while ago, somewhere across the room. To be part of you is so important to me personally. So I want to say thank you. I've just wrapped up 5 years here. I think a lot of folks know when this North Carolina boy arrived, you probably stay a little while, but you got me. I'm not planning to go anywhere, so for good or bad. But I want to say thank you for that. I want to thank Leslie, too. As mentioned, back in the spring, Dr. Moon Choi asked me if I would really begin to work on the area of ag experiment stations. I'm not sure I was asked. Let me rephrase that. I think I was voluntold, if you want to use that term. To set context on that, he believed that we really needed to take a hard look at where we were. We had 22 properties in that entire network. That's a lot, especially when you think about resources and how you do things better. And so through a lot of conversations with him over the spring, one of the things we decided is we really needed a partner in this, and I want to thank Garrett and particularly Leslie Holloway. I knew Leslie. I'd worked with her a lot. You guys know this. I found it out full blast. She is phenomenal. And I know she's not here today. But when you see her, you tell her, I told her, I said, when this gig's over and I'm ready to retire, and you are too, we're going to be consultants. I could work with her every day. And she is fantastic. We love covering the state. We did it in a very short period of time, and I'll get into that. But I also want to say that we inherited a lot of great work. Chris Albert and the Dean's office there, and Kaffner and others, they worked for probably about 12 to 15 months on this. They realized there was a lot of issues. They've done some external groups look at it, done a lot of investigation, and we just inherited that. And then my job, along with Leslie, was to really take that work and figure out how do we make this work. And where has it gone far enough? And quite frankly, it had not. And what are the courageous things we need to do now to really reset this thing so that we can do best in the world in agricultural research? How can we do that? So what I'm going to do is walk you just through a few slides, and then I want to open up for questions, because many of you live in communities where these things touch you. You may have questions about that, and I know, having traveled this week, I was in Northwest Missouri for 2 days in the far corner. I actually saw Blake Hurst while I was there, by the way. Great to see Blake again. When I was in the Tarkio area. So again, just as we travel, we know folks have questions, and so I do appreciate Garrett and your team for inviting us to be a part of this. And so I'm going to share a few things with you, get you started. Again, this is typically, I've worked a lot with ag experiment stations in my prior life in North Carolina State, but having been here, I hadn't done a whole lot with them. And so it's kind of interesting to get back into that and to understand, to think about how you move this forward so the university can really get in behind it in terms of not only the president, but also the curators. So if you look at the history of this, and I think it's important for people, there's an assumption sometimes on our part, everybody understands this, but you really got to go back to 1862 with the creation of land-grant universities. Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act, and that's when land grants emerged. That's how it all started. Prior to that, higher education was just fully affluent and well-connected. 1862, he signed the Morrill Act, named after Justin Morrill, who was a senator from Vermont, who really believed access to the university was important. Their goal was to obviously, and through that, agriculture, extension, ultimately, all the things we think about in land-grant universities came to be. But it was really about trying to create a pathway for everybody to have access. And you got to remember, in 1862, rural poverty was a big issue. Folks across the country weren't connected, and so it began to move that forward. If you go to 1870s, MU's College of Agriculture was established, much like others across the country, K-State, Purdue, and other places, similar time frame. If you go to the next thing, 1887, Senator Hatch, who was actually from Missouri, United States Senator, he authored the Hatch Act, which was the first federal fund to establish ag experiment stations. They were learning in that time that knowledge was being created on the campuses about agriculture. They needed to extend it out. So the first moment of extension, to extend out, was the creation of the ag experiment station, Sanborn Field. Some of you know that name. There at University of Missouri was the first. It was a property there. It's still there. But you go to Bradford, and now you can go to the Delta Center, and then you saw, the Thompson Farm, and all these different farms begin to emerge, and it was all off the Hatch Act. So we still get federal experiment station money that's matched with state money, and then other monies come together, and that's what funds it. This Hatch Act is important for Missouri. There's actually furniture from Senator Hatch's office on the MU campus. So if you're ever there, you want to see a piece of history, it's kind of interesting to think about that. If you look at 1888, that's when it really started here, and we began to do this practical research in agriculture for Missourians. So I'll take you a step further. Research faculty work on these farms, they do testing, they do observations, do demonstrations, and the reason you have so many of them is, as you know, Missouri is a diverse place. There's a lot of different agriculture. When I'm in northwest corner of Missouri at the Graves Chapel Farm, or if I'm at the Delta Center in southeast Missouri, very different. You couldn't be more different. You know, one's mid-south, one is definitely more like Iowa, more like Nebraska. It's just different. So you need that because climate's different, soil's different, type of agriculture is different. All those things are different, and in order to do demonstration work and experimentation, you needed this diversity of properties. So that's how it grew so fast, it got so big. And so again, it helps you really understand that. And these centers, as you know, if you have one close to you, become the identity of those communities oftentimes. I was at WordAct 2 weeks ago, and if you go down there, it means a lot to folks down there. It's meaningful to them. I was at Huntley Whaley Tuesday afternoon. Means a lot to the community that people care about it. When you're in southwest Missouri, people care about the Southwest Center. They want it to be good because it's a piece of them. It's their culture. So again, these properties become really important, and we wanted to make sure that as we go forward, that we begin to do the good things we need to be doing. So let's move all that forward. If you go back and look at Missouri's history, there was a time in this state where there was this thing called earmarks. And I bring this up not to say it's good or bad, but it was. It was a thing, and you had a line of United States senators over time, as Garrett would know, who were really, really good at bringing money to Missouri. And one of the things that we found in going through this is there was a lot of money put in these ag experiment stations that came from federal earmarks. Outstanding, and it benefited. And what it did, though, unfortunately, is it masked a bigger problem. And that was that over time, the state was slowly decreasing support for higher education, and I'm not knocking the state, that's happening nationally, that's not a unique thing in Missouri. You've seen a shift in that, but those monies masked that for quite some time. As earmarks went away, you had about a 5 to 7 year lag time, and then you began to see money really sink into these properties. They said, well, where's our faculty? Where's our equipment? Where's our new technologies? Where's our breakthroughs? And what you had was a problem because financially you couldn't sustain 22 properties anymore. So this went on now for a number of years. So we looked at it, you got a budgetary issue. Secondly, you have these large areas. You got a lot of property, a lot of land. Land's great to have. You can maintain it, keep it going. But if you can't, that's a problem. You also had declining faculty numbers. As budget cuts would happen, we didn't have the money at the university to replenish those. If a person retired, the way you did a budget cut is you said, well, I just want to replace that, that way we're not firing anybody. So that's kind of how it erodes down over time. And again, not unique to Missouri, happens in all states. And then you end up with outdated infrastructure. So you end up with equipment that is definitely not cutting edge, and you begin to say, oh, okay, we got to do something. Well, I've had the privilege of being, I think, on every single one of these properties now. And when you get out there and see them, you can see some that have really good opportunities. Others are really lagging behind, and you see that too. But we want it to be where it needs to be. So, hence the study. We started late April, rolled out across this state all of May. I was so happy to go out and do something again and get off the campus because it was the same time that I was able to get vaccinated and go. So we were ready to go. So it all kind of teed up for me in my life. Spent a lot of time talking to stakeholders. We spent time talking to leadership from each of those farms. All properties. We also spent a lot of time with other stakeholders, commodity leaders, people like Garrett and other leaders, past leaders of Farm Bureau. And one morning, I talked to I believe this is right, and they were 30-minute interviews back to back. I talked to the current and every living former director of agriculture this state has. That was an interesting morning. Actually, we probably do have it recorded. I need to hold on to that. That's probably a piece of history. Very few people get to do that back to back. And it gave you a slice of Missouri's history that only they know because they lived it. It was really fascinating for me personally to get to do that. So again, that's kind of where we are. So let's talk about what we came out with. On June 15th, I presented to Dr. Joy, along with Leslie and I, we presented to him his final report. It was already been vetted by the curators, very supportive. We've got some great curators who are very understanding of agriculture. And that's something that's a takeaway that I hope you have today, and that's something that this body needs to know. You've got some people there who really want agriculture to do well in terms of the university. So I'm not sure I've ever seen a university board that's quite this strong in ag, and that's a good thing from where you sit. So if you've got questions or concerns, you've got ears there that I know that many of you already been. You can bet us some more. We always like it when you do that anyway. So let's look at the recommendations. If you look at this, in terms of the whole centers, we saw too many problems. So what can we do to consolidate? Well, part of it was administrative bloat. So what we did is said, if you think about all these properties having their own directors, a lot of them had their own superintendents, their own staff, we were able to consolidate and create 4 centers that have, some of them have multiple farms in them. And there's a northern group, there's a mid-Missouri group, there's a southwest, and there's a southeast or Delta Center as we call it. So you've got 4 of those now. Now you've got some multiple properties in some, but we were able to shrink that down. And so what it means is Shabu Jose in the College of Ag and Food and Natural Resources, who is the Associate Dean of Research, now oversees 4 directors, and they're hiring those now. There's a process going on now. These are some of these people that are internal, want to get into this and can. In that shrinkage of bloat, is what I'll call it, we were able to recover $830,000. Now, unfortunately, that meant some job loss. It did. And that's the brutal part of it. But it was the only way to get us to a more efficient, more effective way. And that $830,000 is being plowed right back in agricultural research. So it's really, from that side, the College of Ag now has gone from 22 down to 4 centers that have some multiple properties in them. And we think it's going to make it, again, much more aligned. We've also, there was a lot of unique practices I won't go into on each farm that were different. How faculty were treated, how people interacted, all of those have been lined up so it's the same system across the entire university platform. Now again, that's the College of Ag. But another interesting wrinkle that came out that I certainly did not expect was this. There is also going to be 4 that we are taking in, that NU Extension is taking in. These 4 are really demonstration oriented. If you think about some that are really in high research, you got some that are really more into demonstration work. Maybe where we partner with Corteva or some other company that comes in and does demonstration work along with our faculty, more of an outreach kind of thing. These 4, 2 up in Northwest, Huntley Whaley, Grace Chapel, Wardak, and also the Jeff Farm in the NU area in Columbia. Those 4 we're taking in. So everybody knows there's no farm extension budget in this. It's money being transferred over. That's part of the deal. So it's not like I've got to pull out more money to do this. It's money being moved around a little bit. So again, we're going to be partnering in different ways. I've just completed the tour of all these again in the this week actually. And we're looking forward to that. Working with advisory boards to really see how we stand these up. So what you're going to end up with, you had 22 centers. You're going to shrink this down, and you're going to have 4 that are under the college and 4 that are under NU Extension. The 4 under the college with very high intensive research. The 4 under us are demonstration oriented. Now, let me say this. Out of all those properties, there's about 7 properties that are on a list, and those are being cash rented. They are probably going to be leveraged in different ways with partners, but those are some that we are moving out of inventory. And so that's another painful point, but it's going to, again, make us more effective, more focused, and hopefully have more dollars down the road, and position the university to invest more. That's part of this too. We had to get the confidence of the university to plow back into it so that the university would then be in a position to put money in where they could. So again, as we go forward, our goal is to be more efficient, more effective, and more relevant, to fulfill our missions as we talk about ag research and all the things we do. Efficient use of financial resources, which is important to all of us. And then lastly, to provide farmers, ranchers, and agribusiness folks those latest technologies that can hopefully drive innovation and hopefully